When Steve Jobs died, the world thought Apple might die with him. One man stood silently in the shadow of a legend. Not loud. Not flashy. Not even known to most people. But when the world watched with doubt, he delivered. Tim Cook didn't invent the iPhone. He didn't create the Mac. He didn't inspire like Jobs, or dream like Elon. But he did something no one thought possible. He took Apple and made it even greater. This is the untold, emotional story of the quiet revolutionary, Tim Cook. Childhood. Timothy Donald Cook was born on November 1, 1960, in the small town of Robertsdale, Alabama. His father, Donald, worked at a shipyard. His mother, Geraldine, was a pharmacy worker. It wasn't a life of luxury, but it was a life of discipline, values, and silent strength. Tim wasn't the loudest kid in the room. He wasn't the class clown. He was quiet, thoughtful, and deeply focused. He grew up in the Deep South during a time of racial tension and economic struggle. But instead of being pulled down by chaos, Tim chose clarity. He was a straight-A student, a perfectionist. And behind that calm expression was a mind built for precision. He enrolled at Auburn University in Alabama, majored in industrial engineering, and graduated in 1982. But Tim's journey wasn't about glamour. It was about grit. Key turning points. After college, Cook began his career at IBM. It wasn't a flashy tech startup. It was corporate, traditional, but it was the perfect playground for a mind like his. He quickly rose through the ranks, and over 12 years, learned the art of supply chain management, a skill few dreamers care about, but which would one day save Apple's life. He later moved to Intelligent Electronics, then Compaq. But something strange happened in 1998. He got a call from a man named Steve Jobs. At that time, Apple was dying. Their market share was shrinking. Their products weren't selling. They were months away from bankruptcy. Tim was told not to join. Everyone said, Apple is a sinking ship. But Tim felt something. He trusted his gut. And in what he would later call the most important decision of his life, he joined Apple. Within 6 months, the turnaround began. Struggles and failures. But it wasn't smooth sailing. Steve Jobs was intense. A visionary, yes, but also unpredictable. He could tear down people in meetings, push the team to the edge, demand the impossible. Tim Cook? He was the opposite. Quiet, methodical, calculated. For years, he worked in the background, building Apple's supply chain into a global powerhouse. He made manufacturing more efficient, slashed inventory from months to days, and saved Apple billions. But no one knew his name. When Jobs got sick in 2004, Cook was asked to step in as interim CEO. It wasn't easy. Apple was at its peak, thanks to Jobs' charisma. Tim didn't inspire with words. He inspired with results. But in 2011, Steve Jobs died. And the world gasped. Would Apple fall apart? Could Tim Cook replace a once-in-a-generation genius? Would this quiet man rise? Or be crushed by the weight of expectations? Major success. Tim Cook didn't try to be Steve Jobs. He didn't wear black turtlenecks. He didn't launch one more thing with drama. He didn't pretend to be a prophet. Instead, he was Tim Cook. Authentic, measured, relentless. Under his leadership, Apple grew faster than anyone expected. He launched the Apple Watch, AirPods, Apple services, and pushed the company to a $3 trillion market cap. He diversified Apple's revenue beyond the iPhone, turned services into a $100+ billion business, and made the company more sustainable, inclusive, and global. He took on China's complex supply chain, fought for privacy rights, stood for equality, and even came out as the first openly gay CEO on the Fortune 500. But he didn't do it for headlines. He did it because it was right. And slowly, the world began to see. Tim Cook wasn't a placeholder. He was a powerhouse. Legacy. Most people still don't know Tim Cook the way they knew Jobs. But maybe that's the point. He doesn't crave the spotlight. He craves impact. He wakes up at 3:45 a.m. every day, reads emails, goes to the gym, and works relentlessly. He's not flashy on stage, but behind the scenes, he's transformed Apple into the world's most valuable company. He doesn't design products. He designs systems that empower innovation. Under him, Apple became more than a tech company. It became a voice for change. He expanded accessibility features for the disabled, made Apple's entire global operation carbon neutral, and even donated hundreds of millions to health and education. He doesn't call himself a hero, but ask the people who work for him, and they'll tell you he's one of the most respected leaders on earth. Not for his ego, but for his integrity. In a world obsessed with loudness, Tim Cook chose silence. In a world chasing glory, he chose purpose. He didn't seek to become the next Steve Jobs. He became the first Tim Cook, a man who turned whispers of doubt into echoes of success, a man who stood at the edge of history, faced the impossible, and quietly changed the world. So the next time you pick up your iPhone or open your Mac, remember, the story behind it wasn't just written by a genius. It was preserved, expanded, and honored by a quiet revolutionary. Let this be your reminder. You don't have to be loud to lead. You don't have to be a genius to be great. You just have to be relentless, authentic, and brave enough to believe in your own path. Because sometimes, the quietest voice changes the world the most.